So, two things kind of like happened to me recently that I've been thinking about that kind of like inspired me to like think about this topic, make this video. But I went to Atlantic City last week, or the week before that, I should say. And on the boardwalk, they have a bunch of like tourist traps and everything. And there was a lady doing psychic readings, and I was like, this would be the perfect time to get one. I'm like in Atlantic City on vacation, and like let me just see what she says. But ultimately I decided against it because I was told you don't like touch that stuff, don't mess with it because of, whatever can happen when which I'm going to get into actually. The second thing that really made this idea come to mind is that I've been reading this book called Extraordinary Knowing over like the past month or so, and I promised myself I was gonna like try to read a little bit more because I feel like my quality of life was better when I read more. But this book is basically she was a professor, and she kind of investigates people who claim to have psychic abilities, like intuition, the reasoning behind this and if it's real or not. I think the concept of psychics, mediumship, intuitives, I think this subject is so interesting because essentially what these people are claiming is that they can basically see the future. Like this is like a form of like if it's real, right? The paranormal that we accept but don't really acknowledge, if that makes any sense. And I don't want to say I don't believe in it, but I've been told by enough people to not really engage with it. I grew up where you don't go to psychics, you don't get readings, you don't do any of that stuff. Without going into too much detail about this first story, I knew someone, I had a friend whose cousin went to a reader and psychic reader, whatever, I'm not really sure, but both of them went to go get a reading done. And the girl told them that somebody very important in their life would pass away within a year. And they were like, yeah, whatever, just for fun. And lo and behold, somebody important in her life did end up passing away. I want to say more than a year later, but around that time. And that was I want to say this is the first story I heard where I was like, oh, well, you know, I guess it could be a coincidence. Who really knows? I grew up on like a lot of shows surrounding this topic, but like Long Island Medium, Ghost Whisperer for my 2000s kids who remember Ghost Whisperer. Um like so there was like I don't know, there was like maybe I'm biased because I saw this stuff growing up so much. And there's like branches of like psychic abilities if you want to call it that people talk about. And one of those things that I've seen, like people have told me about in my own life, is dreams, right? A lot of people, like, I feel like we've all experienced this actually, but people, people that I've known have had dreams where they're like, if they were struggling with something or trying to solve like an issue in their life, they had a dream about like how to solve it or what was going to happen, or even dreams that don't have anything to do with the current what they're dealing with, like just it's like dreams of things to come. I had a coworker a couple years ago who came in to our job one day and asked, who's pregnant? Because I had a dream about fish. And for a lot of cultures, I don't know if it's every culture, but a lot of cultures say that if you dream of someone you know is pregnant, right? She came in and asked, said I had a dream about fish, who's pregnant. And one of the girls we worked with was actually, she didn't know she was pregnant yet, but she was pregnant. So it's like, I don't know how to explain things like that, you know? They weren't even really like close friends like that. So another story that a friend of mine told me is that he had a dream where his brother was asleep in his car and he had come back from work. So sometimes people like fall asleep in their cars, they're so tired. And he said that the dream told him to get up and go get his brother. And when he went outside, his brother was actually asleep in his car in the driveway of their house. So how you explain that, I really don't know, but I feel like everybody has had a friend tell them about something like this, or they've experienced it themselves. So this story I saved for last, mainly because it doesn't really involve a psychic per se, or like a intuitive or anything, but it does kind of involve a form of divination. And that is a story that my aunt told me about her college roommate. So she said that she had a roommate in college and they were cool. She kind of knew her vaguely. And one day she had come back from class and the roommate was like, "Oh, look at what I found." And she had bought a Ouija board. Everybody kind of knows what a Ouija board is. If you don't, it's a form of like speaking to like the other side or whatever. I really don't know. I've never attempted to play with one. But she brought back a Ouija board because I think at this time it was marketed as like a kid's toy. So she decided to buy it. And my aunt was like, "You have to get that out of here. That's like a form, we you should just get that out of here." And the roommate was like, "It's fine, whatever." My aunt was literally like, "No, you have to get rid of that." Her roommate told her that she and her other friends had already used it. And now my aunt's really like, "Okay, now you really have to get rid of this thing." And she said that the planchette moved and it spoke back to them. And she was like, "You, like, I'm not staying in this dorm. Get rid of it." Don't know how she convinced her to get rid of it. I can't really remember, but she threw it out in the trash, right? The next day, they had all gone back to class and, spent the day doing their classes, whatever. When they came back to the dorm, the Ouija board was sitting on her roommate's bed. So now, of course, my aunt's like, "I thought I told you to get rid of it." She's like, "We got into an argument." And the girl was like, "I did get rid of it. I threw it out in the trash last night." Obviously, my aunt didn't believe her. She was like, "Throw it out." So at this point, her and her roommate are both like scared of this thing. And the roommate decides we have to, not my aunt, but her and her friends have to take this and throw it out somewhere away from the campus. So she and her friends drive, and I want to say they found like a dumpster somewhere a couple miles from campus that they threw it out. When they came back to their dorm from throwing it out, the board was back on the roommate's bed. So now, obviously, at this point, they can't put it up to somebody putting it back to prank them or whatever. So now they're really scared. They're like, "Oh my gosh, how do we get rid of this thing?" My aunt was pissed. Long story short, they ended up finding out that you have to drown the board, I believe. You have to like from what they were told. You have to put the board underwater to get rid of it. So they ended up having to, I think she said they took like a bin and they poured water in it outside and put something on top of it to keep it from coming back. My aunt has literally no reason to lie to me. She swears to this day that this is a true story. Anyways, guys, that's all I really have to say on the topic for now. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next time.